One question that I've been asked quite a lot recently is which of these is better, the AXN or the Bixler? Well, that's actually a really good question, and it's also one that is actually a little bit hard to answer. The reason for that is because these two aircraft are both generally really similar. However, there are several important differences between the two, and that is what I want to try and discuss in this video. So both aircraft are paragliders and both are a fairly similar size. The AXN is a 1.3 meter wingspan and is 83 centimeters long, whilst the Bixler is a 1.4 meter wingspan and is 92 centimeters long. So the Bixler is very slightly bigger. The two aircraft are also a very similar price, with the Bixler costing, I think it's around £57 for a P&P kit, and the AXN being just slightly more expensive at around £61 for a P&P kit. Now, both of the kits come with a motor, ESC and servos. The motor on the AXN is a 2212 2200 kV motor, which is spinning a 5-inch prop, whilst the Bixler uses a very slightly slower 2212 1900 kV motor, but that is spinning a slightly larger 6-inch prop. Now, the motor on the AXN can be easily changed if you wanted to, as there is easy access to these screws here. However, on the Bixler, changing the motor would be pretty much impossible unless you're willing to rip apart this foam nacelle and then glue it back together afterwards. On both of the aircraft, the servos are the same plastic geared 9-gram servos. On the AXN, the elevator and the rudder servos can be accessed from the battery compartment. But on the Bixler, the same servos need to be accessed from this small hatch on the underside of the fuselage. Now, in both cases, the access is still pretty limited and tricky, so neither of them are especially ideal. Now, going back to the battery compartment, this is where there is a big difference between the AXN and the Bixler. The Bixler has a very large and spacious battery compartment that not only allows you to fit a nice large capacity LiPo battery, but also provides you with plenty of space for a flight controller or any other electronics you want to install. The AXN, on the other hand, though, has a much smaller battery compartment. Now, it's been designed to be a perfect fit for a 2200 3S battery, although you can just about squeeze in a 4000 3S battery if you wanted to. Once a battery is installed, though, there is literally very little space left for a flight controller. In fact, as you can see here, you're basically restricted to using a 20 by 20 size square flight controller, and anything bigger just will not fit. Now, another big difference between the AXN and the Bixler is how the wings are mounted. On the Bixler, the two wings slot together and they are then screwed into place, which makes them nice and tight and secure. On the AXN, however, the wings are a simple friction fit, and over time they do start to become loose. In fact, as you can see here, I've actually had to add some Velcro strips to my AXN wings just to try and help them stay in place. Thankfully though, they haven't fallen off in flight yet. Now, I'm not really sure if I prefer the wings to be screwed on or not. Yeah, having them screwed in place does make them more secure, but it does also mean they are a little bit more prone to crash damage. In fact, only a month or so ago, I did manage to rip the wings off my Bixler in a bad landing. Now, it was easy to repair, but for comparison, when I've had bad landings with the AXN, the wings simply pop off and there's no damage at all. Now, another difference between the two aircraft is the canopies. On both the aircraft, the canopies are held in place with magnets and a little interlocking tab. Now, the magnet used on the Bixler is a reasonably big and strong magnet, and combined with that little tab, it does do a pretty good job of holding the canopy in place. However, the magnet on the AXN is significantly smaller and less powerful, and it does actually struggle to hold the canopy down, especially on bumpy landings. In fact, as you can see here, the canopy on my AXN has on several occasions now actually come off in a bumpy landing, and it's gone straight through the prop, resulting in it being damaged. To make things worse as well, you can't get replacement canopies for the AXN either, so your only option is to do what I've done and try and repair it. Now, that brings me on to 3D printed canopies. For the AXN, I haven't yet managed to find any designs for 3D printed canopies anywhere online, but for the Bixler there are plenty. Now, most of these are designed for holding FPV gear or pan and tilt mounts, etc. But the one that I have here actually allows me to attach my GoPro. Now, an interesting observation that I've made about the Bixler is that even when it's really nose heavy with this GoPro attached to the front, it still flies absolutely fantastic. It will either launch out of your hand or off the ground with ease, and despite all that extra weight on the front, in flight you barely notice any of the extra weight in the nose at all. It still flies really, really good. The AXN, on the other hand though, with no extra weight on the nose and a perfectly balanced CG, I have found can be a little bit tricky to launch. Now, what I found is the best thing to do is to launch it at about 60 to 70% throttle with a really good hard throw, but even then sometimes it will completely fail to take flight and end up hitting the ground. In the air though, both aircraft fly really, really well. They're both really stable, even on windy days, and both of them have really good handling and are really, really easy to fly. With a 4000 mAh 3H battery in the nose, both aircraft will give you a similar flight time of around 30 to 40 minutes of powered flight, that is. And if you throw in some gliding, you can fly for significantly longer. In fact, saying that, the longest flight I've had on my Bixler to date was around 75 minutes. After which I landed with still around 40% battery remaining, and the longest flight I've done on my AXN was 2 hours. Both aircraft are decent enough gliders and both can thermal and slope soar reasonably well. With the slightly bigger wings, I suggest that the Bixler was the slightly better of the two for gliding, although that being said, the AXN is just a little bit more aerodynamically shaped, especially on the nose. So ultimately, like I said at the start of this video, these two aircraft are really, really similar, and it's really hard to say which of the two is the best. I think that on paper, the Bixler might stand out as the better of the two, simply because it's just that little bit cheaper, it's that little bit bigger, and it has got a lot more space inside the fuselage to work with. But that being said, my absolute favourite aircraft to fly at the moment is the AXN. And I just can't put my finger on why. I just really enjoy flying it. I think both aircraft are great though, and you wouldn't be disappointed with either of them. And I think my best advice would be, if you can't make your mind up on which one to get, just get both. Anyway, that's just some of my thoughts for you. I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and I'll catch you next time. Cheers guys.